Before the island broke open and taught the sea to boil, there was a reef of red coral growing beneath a sleeping volcano. The elders said the coral was not alive in the way trees were alive, nor dead in the way bones were dead. It listened between states. It drank warmth from the black sand. It grew where ash fell into salt water. Every branch carried the memory of fire cooled by waves, and every broken shard seemed to pulse faintly when held against the skin. The people of the island did not mine it. They waited for the sea to give it back. After storms, when the tide dragged shattered coral onto the shore, the flame keepers gathered the pieces in silence. They chose only the fragments that still held heat after moonrise. These were carved into small, heart-shaped charms, polished with ash, wrapped in dark cord, and worn by those who walked closest to death: hunters, mourners, war runners, and the keepers who carried the bodies of the fallen home. Most charms warmed the chest. One burned. It was found after the first eruption, when the mountain split its throat and poured molten light down the valley. The village should have vanished. The forest should have become smoke. Yet at dawn, among the blackened palms, a child was found alive beneath a ring of cooling stone. Around her neck hung a piece of coral that had never been carved by human hands. It was red as a wound beneath ash, smooth as bone, and bright inside like a coal refusing to die. They named it Ashwake Heart-Coral, not because it came from flame, because flame seemed to wake when it was near. The child's name was Marael. She remembered nothing of the eruption except the sound of the mountain breathing above her. The villagers said she had been buried under burning timber. They said no one could have reached her. They said the smoke had formed a hollow around her small body, bending away from her mouth whenever she inhaled. Marael grew beneath careful eyes. When she ran, sparks chased her heels. When she cried, the cooking fires leaned toward her. When fever took her one winter, the amulet glowed so fiercely that no blanket could be placed across her chest without smoking. The elders feared the relic. The flame keepers understood it differently. They saw that the hard coral did not protect Marael from harm before harm arrived. It did not stop the knife from cutting, the fever from rising, or the fall from breaking bone. It waited until the body stood at the narrow edge where life becomes a question. Only then did the amulet answer. When Marael was strong, it was quiet. When Marael was dying, it became merciful. Its warmth flowed into torn flesh. Its ember-red light steadied the blood. Its heat did not heal quickly, but it refused collapse. A little breath returned, a little strength returned, a little time returned. And sometimes, when death reached closest, the smoke around her body twisted into shapes that confused the eye. Arrows missed, blades struck where she had been a heartbeat earlier. Enemies swore she moved like a shimmer over hot stone, not invisible, not untouchable, but difficult to hold in the world. The island learnt the first law of the relic. It did not save the unwounded. It guarded the almost lost. When Marael came of age, the war runners demanded the heart coral. They believed it belonged in battle, not around the neck of a girl who gathered herbs and spoke to funeral fires. They wanted its heat for raids across the Black Coast. They wanted bodies that would not fail. They wanted warriors who could endure flame, strike harder beneath burning skies, and return from wounds that should have ended them. Marael did not refuse. She entered the Ember Trial. The trial was older than the village itself. A challenger had to cross the ash field beneath the volcano at noon, carrying no water, no weapon, and no shield. The mountain's heat rose from below. The sun punished from above. The ground cut open the feet with glass and black stone. Most turned back before the first ridge. Marael kept walking. The war runners watched from the shade, expecting her to fall. Instead, they saw the heart coral begin to glow against her chest. Each step grew steadier as her strength faded. When her knees buckled, heat rolled outward from the amulet in a red pulse. Her breathing became slow. The fire in the stones did not spare her, but neither did it claim her. Then the ash field changed. The air bent around her. Her outline blurred in the waves of heat. The watchers could not tell whether she stood near or far, whether she leaned left or right, whether the next step would carry her forward or vanish into smoke. When a war runner threw a spear to test her, the weapon cut through empty haze and struck the ground behind her. Marael reached the ridge at dusk. There she found the bones of those who had failed the trial before her. She knelt among them, placed both hands on the amulet, and whispered a promise no one else could hear. When she returned, the war runners bowed, not because she had proven the relic belonged to them, because she had proven it did not. After the trial, Marael became a keeper of the last flame. Her duty was not war, but passage. When villagers died far from home, she carried a coal from the central hearth to the place where they had fallen. She burned no great pyres. She raised no golden monuments. She lit a small fire, spoke the name of the dead, and watched the smoke climb until the wind took it. The Heart-Coral changed during those years. With every funeral flame, it deepened in color. Its red surface darkened toward black at the edges, as though soot had become part of the stone. Yet its center remained bright. Those who stood near Marael during the rites felt warmth enter old scars. Grief did not leave them, but their bodies remembered how to stand. The elders began to understand the relic's true nature. It was not merely a charm of survival. It was a vessel of return. Ire called the dead to be witnessed. Smoke carried memory upward. Coral held the boundary between sea and bone, heat and salt, life and aftermath. The Heart-Coral gathered all three: the wound, the flame, and the road beyond. But relics that answer death were rarely allowed to remain peaceful. Across the sea, a king of iron ships heard the stories. He did not hear of mourning. He heard of soldiers who could fight while half dead. The invasion came beneath a red dawn. Iron ships cut through the reef. Their hulls crushed coral that had grown for centuries. Their soldiers wore lacquered masks and carried hooks for dragging bodies from burning huts. The king himself stepped onto the shore in armor blackened against heat, smiling at the volcano as if it were a forge built for him. He demanded the Heart-Coral. Marael refused, so the king burned the village. The first flames were ordinary. They ate roof, nets, baskets, sleeping mats. Then the mountain answered. Smoke rose too quickly. The ground trembled. The volcano had tolerated the island's grief, but not the king's hunger. Marael walked through the burning village with the amulet blazing against her chest. Every wound she took made the relic brighter. An arrow opened her shoulder, and heat sealed the blood enough for one more step. A blade cut her ribs, and the smoke folded around her, hiding the angle of her movement. Fire crawled across her arms, but would not root in her flesh. She did not become invincible. She became impossible to finish. The king's soldiers saw a dying woman advance through smoke like a coal carried by the dead. Fear broke their formation before steel did. Marael reached the king at the shoreline, where the reef bled red beneath his ships. He struck her with a hooked axe and drove her to one knee. Her life thinned, her vision narrowed. The world became a tunnel of flame, salt, and pain. The Heart-Coral awakened fully, not with a roar, with a heartbeat. One pulse passed through Marael's body. One pulse passed through the shore. One pulse passed through every broken coral branch beneath the water. The reef ignited. Fire rose from the sea. The king looked down and saw flames climbing his iron ships from below. Not burning wood, but heating metal until rivets screamed and decks split. His army fled toward vessels that had already become furnaces. Marael stood, barely alive, and placed her burning hand against the king's armor. She did not curse him. She gave him a funeral flame while he was still breathing. The island survived, but Marael did not remain unchanged. After the battle, the Heart-Coral no longer cooled completely. Even in rain, it steamed. Even in darkness, it glowed with a buried red. Marael's wounds closed slowly, never cleanly. Thin lines of ember remained beneath her skin, tracing every place death had touched and failed to hold. She knew then that the relic had never offered life for free. It had lent endurance at the edge of the grave, but every borrowed heartbeat had to be remembered. Every wound survived, became part of the amulet's hunger. Not a cruel hunger. Not a hunger for blood. A hunger for meaning. Marael gathered the survivors of the shattered reef and made them swear the Ashwake Oath. The Heart-Coral would never be worn for conquest. It would never be given to a king. It would never be used to make death cheap. It would belong only to those who walked into fire for the sake of carrying someone else out. For generations, the oath held. The amulet passed from keeper to keeper. It guarded scouts lost in burning valleys. It warmed children through fever. It shielded mourners crossing battlefields to recover the dead. It made the weak harder to strike when their strength was almost gone. It taught the wounded body to remember life one breath longer. Yet every keeper learned the same lesson. The Heart-Coral did not prevent the final journey. It only made sure the journey was not taken alone. Centuries later, when the island was found empty, the relic was gone. Only the central hearth remained, cold but unbroken. Around it lay rings of red coral ash, arranged like a necklace too large for any human throat. Scholars argued over what had happened. Some claimed the islanders fled another eruption. Some claimed raiders returned. Some claimed the keepers walked willingly into the volcano to seal something beneath it. None agreed, but sailors still tell a story. When a ship catches fire far from land, and all hope thins to a final breath, sometimes a red glow appears beneath the waves. Smoke gathers where no smoke should survive. The flames bend away from the trapped. A hand warm as living coral seems to press against the chest of the dying. Not enough to make them immortal. Enough to make them rise. Enough to make the next arrow miss. Enough to make the burning door open. Enough to carry one more name into the sky. And if the survivor later finds a small red amulet among the ashes, still warm, still pulsing, still smelling faintly of salt and fuely smoke, they are told not to wear it lightly. For the Ashwake Heart-Coral is not a charm of victory. It is the last mercy of fire. It waits until life has almost gone. Then it burns for what remains.